All right, let's get into wide receivers, and then we'll hit all these questions. Mailbag. Thanks again for the support. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. I hope that helps out. Let us know what you end up deciding. But let's dive into, and as you said, I want to get, we have 44 minutes in at this point. Within the next 7 minutes, I want to be done with this, so we're mowing through questions. So I'm going to go quick here.
This is the heaviest as far as the most players that you have featured, so you're going to have to get rolling.
I'll rip through them all, Truth. You ready? Calvin Ridley.
I'll just tell you, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, Jahan Dotson, and Zay Flowers, and you're anywhere from 2 to 7 spots higher than the experts on those, so buzz through those guys.
Let's rip. So Calvin Ridley, not ranked as a true wide receiver 1. I just want to emphasize this guy is going to be a monster. He looks every bit like the player we knew and loved in Atlanta, now playing with an even better quarterback and a better offense. Some of those toe-tapping catches we saw throughout the preseason, the chemistry that requires, the talent it requires, this is the Calvin Ridley we know and love. Rank him as a wide receiver 1 every week. Do not ever think twice. And Indianapolis has the 3rd worst ranked secondary in Pro Football Focus's preseason rankings. He's going to destroy them, and it's going to start as early as this week. Speaking of bad secondaries, Mike Evans gets Minnesota. We talked about how they are the ultimate shootout narrative, where they have a great offense, they put up their own points, and then they allow a ton of points because their secondary is bottom 5 in the league as well. Mike Evans hopefully gets that new contract, but even if he doesn't, maybe he just wants to go out and show you guys are idiots. You should have signed me to a much bigger deal. I think he goes for one of those patented Mike Evans 100-yard, 2-touchdown days. I have him 5 spots above the experts at wide receiver 23. Should be in most lineups at this point. Jahan Dotson even higher than him, though. Wide receiver 19, 7 spots above the ECR, and that's even with Terry McLaurin playing. I think Dotson is overdue for a massive breakout this season. He had 7 touchdowns on only 35 catches. And that wasn't the skill set we're even most intrigued by last year. Coming in as a prospect, he was a target hog, had over 35% of his college targets with Notre Dame. So I think he can absolutely sustain that number 1 receiver role and push Terry McLaurin down to the number 2. And he's a speed demon as well. Against an Arizona secondary that's bottom 3 ranked here, I think Dotson has a massive coming out party. He was the most targeted receiver by Sam Howell all preseason. I think he kills it this week. You cannot have Dotson on your benches. Let me know if you have any questions on him. But he is a top
this is one of the dilemmas I got. I got Dotson on my bench, and I need you to.
Verse who?
No, we'll talk about it when we get to the mailbag. I'll tell you.
Okay. Well, I'm probably going to go Dotson, but I'm excited to hear.
Okay, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I really am very excited. Keep going.
I got to go with Zay Flowers, too. I got a lot of questions in the DMs. Can we start our rookies early on? And usually you'd like to not. And if you don't have to, I guess don't. But Houston, another one. We keep talking about these bottom 5 secondaries by Pro Football Focus's grades. Rams, Colts, Raiders, Cardinals, Texans. So you can see a trend here. Another bottom 5 secondary at this point for a wide receiver who I absolutely love. I think we saw that touchdown in the preseason, but just all the training camp reports, different gear than everyone else, separating like absolutely crazy. I am such a big fan of Zay Flowers, the player. So I think this is a great coming out party for the kid, especially with Odell Beckham, a little bit of an ankle thing going on now too. That much more potential to distance himself as the clear-cut number 1 receiver. We know Andrews is the number 1 target overall, but Zay Flowers could be that top receiver against a Houston secondary that lost their number. They cut their number 1 cornerback. I don't know what's happening there, but ultimately, I think Zay Flowers is in a great spot. He blows up.
All right, now you buzzed through those pretty good. Let's do the same thing for lowers. You got Amari Cooper, 9 spots below the experts. You got Treylon Burks going against the Saints, 7 spots below the experts. That one's significant because it may be a bench start type thing. You got him very near the fringes, especially in flex leagues and 3 wide receiver leagues. So go ahead, hit me with those before we do Hail Marys.
Yeah, we talked about Amari Cooper just on the bus show overall. As a season, I was worried about Amari Cooper, and it certainly starts against Cincinnati that really limited wide receiver 1s on the season. He had single digits in 4 of his 6 games with Deshaun Watson at QB. Just one of those 6 was in the top 12. The rest were well outside the top 30, many of them outside the top 50. Amari Cooper was already boomer bust, and he was almost exclusively bust when Deshaun Watson took over. This is not where I want to get him fired up. I didn't really like him heading into the season. I don't like him in week 1. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm way too low on this Browns passing attack, and Watson will prove me wrong, and we'll be happy to discuss that in the week 1 recap on Sunday night after all the red zone action. We will see. But Treylon Burks is really just a matter of volume. I think the player is very intriguing, but under Vrabel, we've barely seen a 1 wide receiver be viable, never mind 2. And we've got the Titans ranking 31st, 31st, 30th, 25th, and 30th in pass attempts. You got DeAndre Hopkins, who commanded over 11 targets a game last year when he was in. I don't think he even averages nearly close to that in Tennessee, but we know the man can still command targets and be that number one guy. So I do not expect Burks, who's ranked as a fringe wide receiver 3. I don't think he should be sniffing lineups at this point, given how run heavy they are. At Hail Mary, I like Van Jefferson. He's 31% rostered with no Cooper Kupp. A lot of reports that he looks like a different receiver this offseason, expanded route tree with more branches at this point, was dominating more in the short game. I'll believe it when I see it. He's really been a one-trick pony for most of his 2 seasons in the NFL so far. We'll see what happens, but maybe Puka Nacua is that guy that ends up filling in the Cooper Kupp role more viably. He's been moved into the backfield. He's really shifty in space. He could end up being that guy that fills that role a little bit more viably. So we will see what happens. If you miss out on those two, or you don't want to just deal with this Rams shit show at this point, I do love all the Giants wide receivers. They are all under 10% rostered. I probably like Slayton the most. All the preseason hype was, yes, it's Darren Waller. He's our number one. It's not even close. But after him, Darius Slayton was dominating camps and joint practices and multiple touchdowns every single day type of thing. So I like Slayton as the true number one, the standover. They already have that built-in chemistry. But I am intrigued by Paris Campbell in the slot, a role that Richie James for the last 6 weeks was a top 12 receiver in fantasy. Well, it's Richie James we're talking about. Richie frickin' James. So Paris Campbell in that nice layup target slot role in Brian Daboll's offense, he could be very intriguing. And then, of course, Jalen Hyatt, 20% rostered. He's got the deep burner speed. He's got a lot of upside. And then Isaiah Hodgins, he didn't join the team until week 10, and he ultimately led them in touchdowns. So he's got some upside too. So if you're desperate for a wide receiver, I think any stabs at those Giants, obviously not all of them are going to pan out, but you heard the narrative for all of them. If whoever's out there, which one you lean to the most, I'd rank them probably Slayton, Campbell, then Hodgins, and Hyatt, the most intriguing stash of the 4, but I probably wouldn't trust him in my lineup. Those are a few Hail Marys at wide receiver if you're desperate and missing some people. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.